Hey, hey, Nation, Harry here with Michael. Wait a minute, why do we have an echo? I guess it's because we're having a Friday afternoon club. And you know what? We've got good news, happy news for a change in these crazy times. So, Michael Fraser of Refractor, sir, out of the Seattle area, welcome back. First of all, are you keeping it safe up there with friends and family?
Yeah, absolutely. We're hunkered down in our home, working from home, and venturing out very infrequently. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, I'll tell you, I was thrilled the other day, a couple days ago, you posted up on LinkedIn that you have won an award, a contract related to the defense sector. What's the story? We have the logo on the screen. So what's going on with this thing, these terms I can't pronounce?
Yeah, no worries. We won what's called a Air Force AFWorks, which is their kind of their R&D division. SBIR, as we like to call it, SIBR, which stands for Small Business Innovation Research contract that gives us the ability to go find a customer. And inside of the Air Force, the nice thing about us is that we already had a customer that we were talking with prior to. So we got a letter of support from what's called Level Up, who's essentially the organization that's doing the DevSecOps initiative for the Air Force currently, and then they're going to be pushing it out DoD wide. So it's awesome exposure for us. And so right now we're kind of finalizing our engagement with them, pushing towards what's called a phase two, which is a $1.5 million essentially award or a contract. And we also can get another 1.5 million on top of that for fund matching for every dollar we raise from private investors. So it's an awesome multi-million dollar opportunity. And then even beyond that, this 20.1 program is joint, which means there's Army, there's Navy, there's Guard. So there's a bunch of different other organizations involved now as well on top of the Air Force. And so we now have exposure with those other branches too. So I was actually just talking with one of the fellow Navy people up here that's running the Navy program, who's actually coincidentally based out of Seattle, and there's definitely interest there as well. So it's nice because we'll get exposure across the DoD and then eventually across the larger government. Because with the phase one now that we have the award, we can also go what's called phase three, which means we can do sole source, don't have to go to bid because the process to get to phase one was competitive. And so any other government agency that wants to engage with us for our, specifically for what's in the phase one, which is our DevSecOps automation platform, they can do that and engage with us without us having to go to bid for it. So it's a pretty awesome opportunity.
Yeah, no kidding. Couple questions. When you say customer, let me ask this question in the long version.
Yep.
As you well know, my oldest son completed his degree in aerospace engineering and joined the Navy, a Navy contractor out at China Lake, the missile base in the Mojave Desert, quite frankly.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And he is in a position where, as a younger man, he has to go around to different departments on the base. It's quite large, and they would call those customers, right? He gets like a 6-month assignment with a customer, a 12-month assignment with a customer. It's really cool because he's getting a lot of exposure. The word customer flew by in your description. Is that the same idea that the customer is inside DoD?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so they can be, any sort of entity inside of the DoD currently as a customer. This particular joint one we got, or joint phase one we have, we came in through the Air Force's program, but because it's joint, if we decided if the Navy or the Army wanted to come in as well, if there was a entity inside of there that wanted to also engage with us for a phase two, they could as well. But we are definitely, 100% committed on the Air Force side. And then I also just found out that we can do other phase two. So with this phase one, if say the Navy wants or the Army wants a phase 2 with us as well, we can engage with them as well, because they may have certain requirements that are different for them than for the Air Force. Ideally, though, we'd like to try to map our, anything we're going to do that we're going to, build in dual use features that could map across the whole DoD, and then eventually, other three-letter agencies and other places in the government too would be ideal for us. But what we want to make sure is that every single feature that we add in inside of that engagement or that contract is going to be dual use, so it could apply to the commercial space. And so say banks that are highly regulated, or financial services, or a lot of the same feature requirements that they have, will be able to utilize on both sides, the government or the DoD side as well as the commercial side.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested in not only what you're sharing today, but also keeping in touch with our monthly chit chats about your progress. Now that begs the question. I did the back of the napkin math, and so this is a significant revenue opportunity for your firm. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is the duration? Yeah, if you had to guess, what is the duration of this engagement? Is this a 12-month gig, or could this be a decade-long run? How are you forecasting your strategic initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. And the Air Force and the DoD look at it as long-term as well. I mean, they ideally want to get us to phase 3, which is essentially the longer-term, 3 to 7, 10 years out, where we have a product that's just be able to be disseminated across the entire DoD. For right now, the phase 1 is 90 days. Then we have our ability to go to phase 2. So we're now putting together our proposal for phase 2. The phase 2 proposal gets submitted in June. They get granted, the awards will be sent out in July. And then we have about anywhere from 15 to 27 months in order to complete, depending upon what we agree with the, our Air Force customer on the timeline there. And then you can also have it possibly extended if necessary. And you can also apply for other phase 1s too. So if we find that there's something else while we're doing our phase 2 that totally makes sense for us to submit another phase 1, you can only have one phase 1 at a time, but you can submit on other things that your company may do, or some problem you may have found while you're working in a phase 2, that you could then submit another phase 1. And then after that, the phase 2, then essentially everything beyond that is the phase 3, which is the sole source capabilities. And at any point in time, you can do another phase 2 as well with any of the other branches of the DoD. So if the Navy comes in and says, "Hey, we really want you for a phase 2 for what your phase 1 was for," they can actually just pluck you out of the pool and say, "Hey, you're already a phase 1. We're going to work on, you can put together a proposal for us for phase 2. We really want what you're doing or what you proposed in the problem you're solving in the phase 1."
Yeah, I just before we got on the air, as it were, to record, I just finished a draft blog they'll drop in the next few days about counter-cyclical opportunities for, again, some of the obvious reasons. But I think I'll go back and modify it to talk about the defense sector. I was keying in on more of the education sector as an example. So as you well know, when feathers hit the fan and tough times are tough, a lot of people go back to grad school, that kind of thing, to better themselves. DoD, I don't know if I'd so much call it counter-cyclical. I would say the example I've used of stability was grocery stores and the food supply chain. In a recession, you and I still probably need 2,000 calories a day. And in good times and bad, hopefully we're eating about the same. Hopefully in good times, I'm not eating 6,000 calories a day, and in bad times, 1,000 calories. So the point is, grocery stores tend to be actually kind of boring. They tend to be stable. I would put DoD in that conversation. Here today, here tomorrow. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, it's for us to be able to diversify and be able to be part of this program. It does actually help us, and anybody that in this capacity, to be able to diversify. The key though is to not, kind of to your analogy point, where you don't want to swing one way too far or the other way from a engagement perspective with government or commercial. So trying to make sure that you can properly cater to both sides of industry is essential, because it can come pretty fast where it's, in times like we live in right now, where we could devote all of our time and attention to the DoD. And then when the pendulum swings back, it becomes, well, you're not diversified enough to make sure that you can insulate, cuts in, whatever could happen, in government and so on. So just being cognizant about that, I think, is essential. But having the diversity in general is awesome for us as a company.
Well, that's my final question for this month is, so again, congratulations on what sounds like a big win for me, but it could be all consuming. And that can play out a couple of different ways, that you solved one problem and maybe created two, and that can be ramping up with qualified staff and growing, growing appropriately. And then I've also heard cash flow, right? So you're doing all this great work up front and you may not get paid for 30, 60, 90. And now, the kids need shoes, the employees need bi-weekly pay. You're an educated man, you know where I'm going with this. But it literally can be solve one problem and create two. And I'm sure you're on top of it, my friend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there is a reason why companies raise money in strategically, not just to, because the cool thing to do as a startup. And so I would say one of the things that we have working for us up to this point is we've been very careful about not taking money from anywhere that didn't make sense for us. And so we are starting, we've officially started our raise for to get us to the phase 2 in the VC arena. And so the goal was to get us to the place with the product where we can have not only obviously have customers in the commercial side, but now we have this phase 1, which that means that every dollar that an investor makes now, from now when we got the phase 1 award all the way through 90 days post phase 2, so sometime in October, is a dollar for dollar match, which just means that, if they come in for $1 million, their million will actually become 2 million. And so we can do that up to 1.5 million. And so there are a handful of firms out there that are super interested in dual use technologies as well, prior military people that want to invest in veteran owned companies. And I would say, it's awesome to be able to be a part of this Air Force program, being an Air Force veteran myself, because now I'm back able to help innovate from the outside back in, and do it in a way that I have full autonomy over what we can build at Refactor and how we can help the broader DoD and the broader government at large. So it's an amazing opportunity, and we're super, super excited.
Well, again, congratulations. We'll see you on the flip side. Stay safe in Seattle. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Harry. Appreciate the time. You stay safe too.